The familiar sound of my phone vibrating pulled me from my thoughts as I stepped into my quiet home. I had just returned from a week-long business trip abroad, feeling a bit jet-lagged but relieved to be back. When I saw my mother-in-law Julie's name on the screen, I hesitated before answering. Her calls were often unpredictable, ranging from small talk to sudden requests for money. But something felt different this time. Her excitement was almost palpable through the phone. "Olivia, you won't believe it," she exclaimed, her voice buzzing with energy. "You've saved $100,000. I froze in the middle of my living room, her words hanging in the air like a thick cloud. What was she talking about? $100,000? My mind raced. As a freelance jewelry designer, I've always been cautious with money. I have savings for emergencies, but never a large amount like that just sitting around. I would never stash that kind of cash somewhere so accessible, and my bank card was with me the entire time during my trip. Julie continued, her tone casual. "You left it in the sideboard drawer. I figured since you're doing so well, it was fine for me to use it." I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. "What are you talking about?" I managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't leave any money in the drawer." Before I could get any more answers, she quickly thanked me and hinted about needing more financial help in the future. And then, just like that, she hung up, leaving me with a storm of questions swirling in my mind. For a moment, I just stood there, phone still in my hand, trying to piece together what had just happened. $100,000? In my sideboard? My hands trembled as I opened the drawer in question, though I already knew it would be empty. Of course, there was nothing there. Why would Julie think it was okay to take money from our house? Was this some kind of misunderstanding, or was something more serious going on? My husband Larry was due home soon, and I was determined to get to the bottom of this. As the minutes ticked by, my concern deepened. Could it have been Larry who left the money? But why in such a careless place? We've always been responsible with finances, especially since starting our jewelry design business together. Larry had recently quit his corporate job to help me manage the growing demands of our brand, and we've been balancing our roles carefully. When Larry finally walked through the door, I wasted no time. "Julie called," I began, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. "She said something about taking $100,000 from the sideboard drawer. Do you know anything about that?" Larry's face paled, and I immediately knew something was wrong. Larry rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes avoiding mine. I didn't think she would actually take it," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart starting to pound. Larry sighed deeply, finally meeting my gaze. "A few weeks ago, Julie started asking for more money. You know how she is. Always assuming we're living this luxurious life just because of the business. She doesn't realize that most of what she sees are obligations, not indulgences. Anyway, she got herself into more debt. Credit cards, loans. It got out of hand." I felt a chill run down my spine. What does that have to do with $100,000? "I was trying to keep her out of trouble," he admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "I withdrew the money to help pay off some of her debts, but I wasn't ready to tell you yet. I thought I'd have time to figure it out before you came back. I didn't think she'd just take it from the house like that." My mind raced. Julie had always been a bit reckless with money, but this was on a whole new level. The fact that she had taken such a large amount without permission was shocking, and what was worse was that Larry had been keeping it from me. My husband, who I trusted completely, had stashed a significant sum of money in our home, and his own mother had helped herself to it. "Larry," I said, struggling to keep my composure, "do you realize what you've done? This isn't just about the money. It's about trust. How could you not tell me?" Larry's shoulders slumped, and he sank into a chair. "I know. I was trying to protect you from the stress. We've been doing so well, and I didn't want Julie's problems to drag us down." But it was too late for that. The weight of Julie's actions and Larry's secrecy had already begun to pull us under. This wasn't the first time Julie had caused trouble. Over the years, she had developed a habit of asking for money under the guise of needing help, but more often than not, it was for things like parties, new clothes, or even vacations. Each time, Larry would try to placate her, thinking that giving in would keep the peace, but it only seemed to make things worse. Julie never understood the reality of our situation. She saw our business growing, the events we attended. Зрение, высокопрофильные клиенты, мы встречались с и предполагали, что мы живем каким-то видением. What she didn't see were the long hours, the financial juggling, and the stress that came with maintaining our brand. Every dollar we spent was carefully calculated to ensure the survival of our business. We weren't living in luxury. We were living in survival mode. Despite this, Larry had always been soft when it came to his mother. He hated conflict and would rather give her what she wanted than deal with her tantrums. But now, we were facing a situation that couldn't be solved with a simple handout. I looked at Larry, my frustration bubbling to the surface. We can't keep doing this. Julie's out of control. You've got to stop giving in to her demands. Larry nodded, his face etched with regret. I know. This has gone too far. As the days passed, Julie's calls became more frequent. She started asking for more. Small favors at first, but then bigger requests. She wanted money for a new dress, a fancy handbag, and even a lavish party she was planning. Each time, Larry tried to explain that we couldn't afford to give her money like that, but Julie wouldn't listen. She was convinced that we had more than enough to spare. Then one day, things took an unexpected turn. Julie showed up at our door, her face flushed with frustration. Why didn't you tell me the money had strings attached? She demanded as soon as she stepped inside. Larry and I exchanged confused glances. What are you talking about? I asked, keeping my tone calm, though I felt anything but. The $100,000, she snapped. I tried to buy something the other day and my card was declined. Why did you put limits on my spending? Larry's eyes widened in disbelief. You maxed out the card already? Julie crossed her arms defiantly. It's not fair. You two are always going to fancy places, buying expensive things. Why shouldn't I get to enjoy myself too? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Julie, we're not spending money for fun. These are business expenses. What you're doing is different. But it's all money, she countered. You just don't want me to have any fun. At that moment, something inside me snapped. This isn't about fun, Julie. You took money that wasn't yours and spent it without asking. That's theft, plain and simple. Julie looked taken aback, as though the concept hadn't even crossed her mind. But I'm family, she said, as if that excused her actions. Family or not, what you did was wrong, I said firmly. And now you've put us in a difficult position. Larry, who had been quiet up until now, finally spoke. Julie, we've tried to help you, but you've crossed a line. We can't keep supporting your lifestyle. It's time for you to take responsibility. Julie didn't take the news well. She stormed out of our house, slamming the door behind her, and for a while, we didn't hear from her. I thought maybe she had finally realized the gravity of what she had done, but I was wrong. The calls started up again, but this time they weren't just asking for money. They were filled with desperation. Olivia, please, I need your help, Julie begged during one of her calls. The creditors are hounding me. They're threatening to take everything. I could hear the fear in her voice, but I also knew that we couldn't bail her out again. We had already given so much, and now our own future was at risk. One evening, as we sat in our living room, exhausted from another long day of work, Larry's phone buzzed with yet another call from Julie. He stared at the screen for a moment before silencing it and setting the phone down with a heavy sigh. We can't keep doing this, he said quietly, echoing the same words I had spoken weeks before. I've been enabling her for too long, and now she's in a mess I can't fix. I nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Julie had always relied on Larry to bail her out of trouble, but this time was different. This time, the consequences were too great, and we couldn't afford to get dragged down with her. After much discussion, Larry made the difficult decision to cut ties with Julie financially. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when he questioned whether he was doing the right thing. But in the end, we both knew that it was the only way forward. Julie needed to learn that actions have consequences, and we needed to protect ourselves from her reckless behavior. As we prepared to move abroad for a new business opportunity, we tried to put the whole ordeal behind us. But it wasn't easy. Julie continued to call, pleading for help, but we had made our decision. The move overseas brought us new challenges, but also new opportunities. Our business flourished in the international market, and soon we were receiving offers from all over the world. It was an exciting time, but it was also bittersweet. As we navigated our new life, there was always a lingering thought of what we had left behind. Julie had sold her house to pay off her debts, but it wasn't enough. She now lived in a small apartment, working a part-time job to make ends meet. It was a far cry from the life she had once known, and though I felt sympathy for her, I also knew that her situation was the result of her own poor choices. As the months passed, Larry and I reflected on everything that had happened. The experience with Julie had taught us a valuable lesson about boundaries and the importance of financial responsibility. We had worked hard to build our business and our life together, and we weren't going to let anyone, family or not, jeopardize that. Julie's story was a cautionary tale, one that reminded us of the importance of managing our resources wisely and staying true to our values. Though it had been a difficult road, we had come out stronger on the other side, and we were determined to continue building the life we had worked so hard to create. As I stood by the window of our new home, overlooking the bustling cityscape, I couldn't help but think about how far we had come. The challenges we had faced with Julie had tested our relationship, but they had also brought Larry and me closer together. We had learned to rely on each other, to communicate openly, and to set boundaries when necessary. Our business was thriving, and though the road ahead was still full of uncertainty, we knew we were on the right path. The future was bright, and we were ready to face whatever challenges came our way, together.